Hello, everyone. Our YouTube group. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm asking them how they are, but
Oh.
how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
We have another great podcast today, and today we're talking about the fear of intimacy. Ooh.
Into me I see,
Yes.
as the love guru said.
And most people that have the fear of intimacy actually don't realize they have the fear of intimacy. So we're going to answer a question that's very common. A lot of our clients will ask me, I have everything going for me. I have this great career. I have a house. I'm financially stable. I'm attractive. I'm almost 40 or just turned 40, or I'm in my,
I'm a good
mature
person.
I'm a good person. I'm smart.
Like me.
People tell me I'm attractive. I'm thin, all these things that everyone thinks is perfect for them on the surface. And they say, but I go online or I go in social events and I never meet anyone. I don't meet anyone. No one shows up. Or if they do show up, they're going to show up. They don't ask me out on a date. They text me and we exchange, and then they kind of disappear, and nothing ever really gels. And then the people that are interested, they're not interested in, and the people that they like, they feel that aren't responding to them.
So what you're saying is that they got
What's
everything
going
going
on?
for them, but they're not getting any response from the world, right? No dates. Now, you've been doing some research on kind of the professional woman, the Amazon, if you will, in mythology. This character who really represents what the modern woman is today.
Yes.
She's kind of in charge of her own life. She doesn't need a man. But of course, like every human being, she needs love. She needs attention.
And she wants love.
Yeah.
And so according to, we teach Jungian psychology, and Toni Wolff back in the early 1900s came up with this idea of the 4 types for women that women fall into. And it's more of a default that we have. We call it the love default persona that people fall into. And it's based on their experience when they were younger, their influence on how they saw their mother's role and what role a woman decided to take in their life. And there are 4 of them. There's the mother wife, there's the lover, the mistress, the unattached woman, there is the professional woman, and then there's the mystical woman, the intuitive and spiritual woman. And so we all have all 4 of them, but by default we approach love through one predominantly.
Right. Can I ask you something, because you brought up something really interesting, and that is the controversial Toni Wolff.
Yes. Let's talk about her.
I don't know that much about her, despite reading almost everything I can about Jung, Carl Jung. I don't know that much about Toni Wolff. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Well, she was his mistress for a little time. Jung had a lot of mistresses throughout his life. He was married very young to Emma Jung, who was, I think, 19 at the time when they got married. They had 5 children. So Emma Jung, for 10 years, basically all she did was bear children. She was pregnant most of the time, and Jung was really into his work. And so Emma was basically, Toni was basically his muse, so one of his muses, and she studied psychology. She was a psychologist, and she never got married. And, she really looked at women and their role, and she didn't take a traditional role as most women did in her age. In the Victorian times, women got married and they didn't have careers. And so she found it interesting that she found herself in this mistress role, and but a professional role, which was very unique. And then she saw how other women were relating.
So she was a student of Jung's? Or?
She was a client, actually, and then became a lover, and then became a psychologist, and studied the work.
Studied his methods.
And then a lot of people think they had this long romance, but it was really a shorter romance, and then longer. They ended up being friends. It was more of a friendship and colleagues, and they worked together, and Emma worked with her too. And Emma said, she filled a part of me that I couldn't fulfill for Jung in a way, like as far as his professional partner.
Yeah.
And so it really was more of a professional. A lot of people think it's, this terrible, idea of the mistress and this great psychologist, and he needs to be perfect. But it's interesting, her take on women and feminine psychology. And so anyway, that's her.
Well, I remember when we visited Zurich, we visited Carl Jung's home, and the tour guide told us about Toni Wolff being in the picture. And I remember she very kind of demurely said Toni would not eat dinner with the family.
Yes.
Like that was the line essentially
that
Emma would draw and say, you guys can work together and do whatever you have to do professionally, but my home is my home.
And then Emma eventually ended up studying. They hired a tutor. She wasn't professionally educated or educated because back in the day, those days, women weren't educated. If you had money, which is weird, right? If you didn't have if you had money, you didn't need an education because you would just kind of be a wife to someone and you would have the inheritance, and there was be no need for a career or education. And so she was actually, after she had all her kids, she started getting educated and became a psychologist herself and added to the feminine psychology because Jung came from a male perspective. And so I found it very interesting listening and hearing about Toni and reading about her work. And but I also think that there's an opportunity for us in the modern era in the new millennium. We're in the 20s now, 100 years later, and women have changed. The roles have changed, and I think more women are taking on multiple roles of those four archetypes. Where in the Victorian age they were very, very limited. It's like you choose your path. You're going to be a professional. You're going to be someone's mistress. You're not going to get married, or you are going to get married. Another famous person in that lover archetype is Salome, who was the famous lover of Rilke and a muse for many, many, many men, Nietzsche. And so there was a role for women, but it was very rare back in those days.
Yeah. So back to Toni Wolff's ideas, and she developed her own psychology of feminism in a way, based on Jung's model of the psyche.
Yes, she said that the women, the roles they choose, they end up suppressing the other roles, and they don't express their full self in relationships and in their life. And really, truly, what we talk about in Jungian psychology is that you want to bring your whole self to a relationship. You want to bring your whole self to your life. So a lot of women can relate to getting married and giving up their career and having babies, or not wanting to get tied down. They want to be free to travel. They don't want the constraints of marriage. Maybe they saw that when they were younger, or they really thought, well, the only way I can get security is to make my own independence. And that's the professional.
And so the professional in Toni Wolff's model essentially would represent the modern woman of today.
Most of it, because not every woman of today has a career. Some still, their primary career is to be the mother. They don't, they're not taking on a role out in society. They're kind of running the family, even if they do have a job. I mean, some people have jobs, but it's not their passion or what they want to do. They, they may work at home but their primary role is to be the mom. But for the professional, her primary role, if you lead with that, is about success, is about your education, your passion, your purpose, your drive. So you can have you can be an entrepreneur, you can be like a Sarah Blakely. That's a professional. Like her life is bigger than just the family, and the family tends to take the backseat to those things, and most women can't balance it all. A lot of women have a conflict with that.
So somebody like Oprah Winfrey essentially would be fall into this category.
Yeah, and you know who else? If you think about it in history, Queen Elizabeth I. A lot of what she realized, the man she loved was married to another woman. He was married to another woman, and he also wasn't a royal, so she couldn't marry him. And then the men that around her disappointed her. She saw how they were just all cheating, and she was like, why do I want to give half of my throne away? I have the power. Why would I want to give that away? So she ended up marrying England. She said, I'm going to marry you, and kept her power. And there's actually a movie called Mary Queen of Scots that Saoirse, I can't remember, Rodin, or I can't remember her last name. It's a beautiful story about this conflict that women have between the professional, their independence, and being the married woman, and the conflict. And of course, this was back in, the 1600s, but it wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't.
So what would be the contemporary equivalent, that the woman marries the corporation, essentially?
Yeah, she marries the corporation. She marries her career. Her business becomes her spouse. I know a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, and their business is basically their lover, and they end up feeling that if I don't give all my attention to this lover, and it's also your baby, your lover, your baby, your partner, and if I don't give all my attention to this, a relationship, and bringing a relationship is going to mess it up. And so, and it may be an entrepreneur, or it could be a corporate world, where if you built your security around financial independence, if you've said, I like this, a lot of our clients say they're very financially independent. They can travel whenever they want to. They could stay whatever hotel they want to. They can buy whatever house they want. They can buy the clothes they want. They could take care of themselves, and they don't need a man to like support them financially. And so that they're afraid, though, more of their heart. And so it's almost like they build a cushion around themselves, as this is going to help me stay safe in the world, this big bad world. I'm going to be independent. And again, this is not a conscious decision. This is what's going on unconsciously. And the ego tends to want to put us in categories and want to make things black and white. And if I have this, I can't have that. There's very little gray area to that. So then we say, well, okay, so if you're a professional woman, you're you're independent. How do I become codependent or counter-dependent with someone else? Like, how do you bring?
That's a good word.
Not codependent, but you know what I mean. It's intradependent, where you're bringing someone else in, and we hear clients say all the time, "It's going to mess up my life. This person's going to screw everything up." And so the professional tends to be a perfectionist, and she wants things very much in order. Has herself together, and part of the reason why she has been able to function that way and excel in business is she's able to manage her emotional life. She's able to kind of keep her emotions compartmentalized, because in the corporate world, that's basically men created. That's how they function. And so they a lot of times they take on the masculine kind of idea that I have to push my emotions away. I got to stay focused. And then the terror is, if I let someone into my heart, two worlds are going to collide here.
So would you say that the primary complex of the age that we're living in for women is this conflict between career and family?
I think so. I think that people aren't conscious of it, because a lot of the women I work with definitely want love and marriage. They're not saying, I don't want love and marriage, I want my career. Again, this is unconscious. They don't realize what is happening. So our teaching always is, look at the results in your life. Look at the fruits of your tree that's growing in your life. The roots reflect the fruits, and so the roots are unconscious. And so if you're not getting results, it's reflecting back that on some level, you don't want that result. And it's such a hard concept to think about, right? It's that I can't imagine that I would not want a result. I really want love. I'm sorry.
So the fear of intimacy is that they're afraid it will wreck their careers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
The primary conflict is that if I let somebody into my heart, they will essentially wreck my opportunities to excel in my career.
Yes.
Wow. Interesting.
Well, not. I don't even think it's the career itself. I think it's more that they can't if they lose their emotional their ground. There's like a barrier that's not letting them feel on a deeper level, and they're not aware of that. They're not aware of their deeper feelings, and so they can't even get to the point where they're passionate about something or connecting emotionally. They'll even go on dates too, and it'll be a very practical decision. They'll be like, well, he doesn't check off all my list, and they're approaching dating from a very logical, rational standpoint, which is good, but the emotion is out. It's like they don't allow themselves to feel romantic. And this is generalization, but some qualities is they don't allow themselves to imagine because they're afraid of being disappointed. Look at your results and see what those results are telling you. And then the next thing is you want to figure out how do I take responsibility for those results? And how do I now look within? And how would you say that?
So let's say from the psychology of romantic love, the woman needs to understand that she's not the persona, meaning that, yes, the persona has allowed her to be successful in the corporate setting, for example. But that love requires going deeper than the persona. Carl Jung said the persona is essentially a mask that we wear in order to be accepted by the group, by society. But that's not what we fall in love with.
And so she needs to kind of understand her deeper self.
That's right.
And not the persona that you are putting out there. That you are I think that if you're so independent, you put so much into being a professional, and your success and your ego's all tied into that you're afraid anything would mess that up. A lot of people, that I've seen people who've, got into bad relationships and they're ashamed, that they let themselves be a fool. And so that's like one of the fears. And so the bottom line is, of course, you have to do individuation work, but the key is to be willing to get your heart broken. You have to be you have to get down into the fear of why you're so afraid. What are you really afraid of? And you may not be conscious of it. So you have to keep going, using the techniques that we always talk about to work with your emotions.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will look at their experience and say, well, I don't feel anything. And so you have to find a way to look at that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what is, let's say, the bottom line? So you have this internal conflict between career and love. What is the basic approach? Coaching, therapy? What do you have to do?
It depends. I mean, I think that if you have some kind of personality disorder and you've been diagnosed with something serious, you should go to therapy. But for most people, we're pretty normal. You can actually get a coach to help you, a Jungian coach, which is what we and our team does, to help you go into the unconscious. Because if you just change your dating behavior, if you change your profile, you think, well, if I just change my picture and make it look better, change what I write, maybe I'll get a different response, or change how I act on the date. It's not, it's internal. So remember, the external conflict is reflecting an internal conflict. So if you have everything going for you, you pride yourself on being independent, ask yourself, are you afraid of shaking up the emotions? How do you work with your emotions? Do you not like when you get upset? Do you not like when other people get upset? Does that make you feel uncomfortable? A lot of people that are in the corporate world have been conditioned to not allow emotions. Like if there's an employee or a team member that's dramatic, it tends to that's not appropriate in the corporate world. So we have to look at what is your relationship with emotions, and how willing are you to share the deepest parts of yourself with another person without being afraid.
So the good news is you don't have to choose between career and love.
No.
You can certainly be able to let's say, to work with both, but it does require that looking inward and understanding that maybe what you're identifying with is not the totality of yourself.
Yes. And really the things that have made you successful, the conditioning, the work ethic, the perfectionism has really played a great role in making you successful, that your ego's saying, hey, this is good. Like, do you want to change this? So really we have to get to what's the next, can we bring another element in? Can we bring another person in? Can I bring another part of myself forward? It's really bringing that deeper, soulful, sensual part of yourself forward in a relationship. And is there room in your life for that? Is that scary?
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you on our next podcast, and we will tell us what you think, and we will see you soon.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.